Welcome back to Gale Force Winds Season 2.
The Gale Force Winds podcast is proudly sponsored by Newfound Marketing, a digital marketing agency located in St. John's, Newfoundland. Newfound Marketing builds cost-effective digital marketing solutions to help organizations unlock their online growth potential. Newfound Marketing's team of experts works with their clients from start to finish to deliver solutions that convert. Visit our website at newfoundmarketing.ca to find out how we can help your business grow. Newfound Marketing, a complement to your marketing team.
Well, another great edition of Gale Force Winds coming up. You want to talk about leadership. Now, here's a guy who's had an amazing career in the Royal Canadian Navy and then an equally amazing career in Canada's defense sector. This guy is making a difference to Canada, and it's all based on trusting the people that work with him and trusting himself. Wonderful conversation with Jerry McLean from Babcock International.
Couple of things. Never burn a bridge and surround yourself with good people.
Well, welcome to another edition of Gale Force Winds. I'm Alan Dale, and with me as always, my good buddy from the east end of St. John's, Jerry Carew. How are you, Jerry?
Well, you know, you always ask me that question, and I tell you the sun is shining and all that. I've had a pretty challenging morning, frankly, but I'm here. I'm going to be in the moment, Alan, which I think is really important for all of our listeners. We need, despite what's swirling around us in the world of business, we need to focus, and that's what I'm going to do today.
Well, that's great, Jerry. I'm certainly excited to have our next guest on. Jerry McLean and I go back a few decades now. We sailed together on one of Canada's great warships, the Athabasca. It's right behind Jerry's head for those that can see it there. And it's an exciting time to be in this conversation with Jerry, because not only did Jerry make a significant impact in the Royal Canadian Navy, but Jerry is making a significant impact in Canada's defense industry. So I can't wait to get into conversation. So Jerry, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So like you both gentlemen, guys, my heart goes out to what's going on in Ukraine, and I wish all of the Ukrainian people that are suffering through this the best of luck, obviously, as we face tough times. In order to, I guess, for you guys, Jerry, I'm a fellow Newfoundlander. I was born on the island, but lived up in Labrador City for 16.
Where were you born? Where were you born, Jerry?
Born in Corner Brook, buddy. Born in Corner Brook, lived in Howley. So he was one of the first in getting the railroad set up in Labrador City, and I got to find out what cold is like, and the one day in summer, which probably occurs on July 18th, and then the rest of the time is black fly and mosquito season. But that's a long way ago. So I lived in Labrador City for, I guess, until 1980. I was a jock. Played a number of sports. I graduated top of my class from high school, so it was me figuring out how the hell am I going to get out of Labrador City. So Dad and we had a discussion on university. My mind was I was going to go to MUN, and then in January a recruiter came by my school. And I saw a path for how I was going to get out of Labrador City, how I was going to be able to get my university degree, how the old man wasn't going to have to pay for it, and I was only 16 years old. So I remember coming home to tell Dad, I'm going to join the Navy, because nobody had ever joined the Navy out of my class. And he said, join the Navy? You can't even tie a garbage bag. How the hell are you going to be able to go off at 16 years old and join the Navy? So I explained it to him about military college, blah, 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 and off we went. So I was 16 years old, heading into Collège militaire Royal de Saint-Jean. As a Newfoundlander that couldn't say oui or no.
That's pretty good.
No, I'm fluently bilingual now after many kicks. But so yeah, headed into CMR. Was going to be a computer engineer. My first 2 years were a blink of having fun, partying, playing sports, and then basically I ran into a a course called Strength and Materials and Drafting, and figured out that I can't see in 3D. So therefore, my whole path through engineering was going to be a very short one. So stayed on at Collège militaire Royal de Saint-Jean and received my degree in computer science. I guess one of the biggest impacts on my life was I was when I left Newfoundland, I was with my high school sweetheart. We had been together since we've been. She was 14, I was 15, and in second year military college, I had my son. Which, if you can well imagine, guys, in 1982 was not well thought of. So a good naval officer, Tony Hunt, who was my squadron commander, said, "Jerry, you keep your mouth shut, I'll keep mine." And basically, I went through. My wife stayed home in Newfoundland, and then we got together finally when I graduated in 1985. But having a son at 18 years old kicked me in the butt. Obviously got me back on the straight and narrow as to, you better get your life together, McLean. Stop this partying and start getting back to your studies. And that's what it did. So I graduated as the top naval student, and off I went on my career. So that's kind of the beginning, blink, as a naval shipman, not having a clue, and then really got into what is it like now to be in the Navy. And the guys, there was not a thing I would change about being a naval officer. Not a thing I would change, not a second that I would go through and want to change again. It is absolutely the right career of choice for me. So as I won't keep it too long, guys, but as I went through my naval career, I was lucky enough to have gone through training, got on to Athabascan, where I met poor Al and the subbies, and I was the token subby, although I was a lieutenant, and we had some good times. Got in trouble, as we all should when you're a young naval officer, and had some fun. I was lucky enough when I finished doing my training on board that Athabascan was going to, she was supposed to go out of service and go into refit. They decided not to do that, but they had nobody else to replace her. They didn't know when she was going into refit, so I came straight out of my training and assumed the CSE head of department job in Athabascan. So that was wonderful for me. Young lieutenant, should have been a 2.5 position, brand new. Let's get at her, and I had a blast doing it. So that was a wonderful 2 years in Athabascan. Finished in Athabee, came ashore for a year. Then I was lucky enough to be the CSE of Iroquois, first CSE of Iroquois.
What year is this again, Jerry? What year?
Well, I went Athabascan was 88, came out in 90, and then I was back in as the CSE of Iroquois in 91, right at the end of 91. They wanted to have an experienced head of department, bring her to sea, execute all of her trials, blah, 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 blah. So pick me. You allow me to get back to sea again and be a CSE again? Yes, please, doing the stuff that I love. So I had a wonderful time on Iroquois, bringing her through trials, and basically culminating with us being sent over to Operation Sharpguard in the Adriatic for 10 months, which my wife and son will still kill me for and remind me of. And then I basically came ashore. Went up to, moved to Ottawa at that point. Been in Halifax, loved it. Moved to Ottawa at that point, where I spent the next 15 years of my career learning defense procurement, in DGM EPM, in DNR, going through blah, blah, blah. I culminated with me, the careers, the things I really enjoyed was, number one, bringing in naval training systems for the CPF. So the operations from team trainer, national NCOT, as we called it, the national combat operator trainer, maintenance procedure trainers. We were at the leading edge of technology, and I loved it. And it basically culminated in me also then developing the submarine command team trainer before I left DMSS 5. And then I had a blast as the above water warfare director. I think one of the toughest jobs in DGMEPM, where I was the international coordinator for programs like APAR, Sirius, SM2, all of ESSM, were all the wonderful programs that I had to work on as the leader. Met some fantastic people that worked for me during those programs and had an absolute fantastic time. But it's during these times that I got to know industry. Mm-hmm. As a result of, I don't fear anybody, guys. Like I said, I'm a card carrying Newfoundlander. Don't give a shit. Don't care about anybody. So excuse my language. So I got to know industry, trusted industry, and basically managed to find ways that between industry and the Royal Canadian Navy, we were doing the best thing in the best interest of the Royal Canadian Navy. So they got to trust me, I got to trust them, and that was quite important. And as a result, my transition into industry was much easier than most because I had dealt with all of these people. I understood more about what it meant from an industry necessity, i.e. profit is not a bad 4-letter word. People need to make profit, and they were able to explain to me why. But excess profits is a bad 4-letter word, right? Mm-hmm. So that allowed me to be able to transition. I did that into Thales. Now, the main reason I was able to go ahead, Al, please. Yeah, interrupt, because you know me. I'll talk all day.
Jerry, before you get into the transition out of the Navy, yep, and I'm excited to hear about it, and actually enthralled to hear the way you talk about building trust, because honestly, back then there was barriers, right? It was tough, right? It was tough to trust one another in the conversation. But clearly, I want to get back to that point. But before we get there, I need to go back a little bit and tell me, it's one thing to come out of St. John's and go off to military college at the age of 16. It's tough. I've talked to many guys that have done that. It was not easy as a young Newfoundlander going off to military college. But you were coming out of a much smaller place in St. John's. You were coming out of Labrador, beautiful country, but you're thrust into this community with people from around the country. Tell me a little bit about that experience for you, those first couple of weeks, months at CMR. What was it like for a young fella?
Well, luckily enough, as a young fella, I flew out of Labrador City, but joined up with the team in Deer Lake. So on August 5th, there was a number of Newfoundlanders that we were all flying to CMR pretty much together, almost on the same flight. So guys like Greg Burt was in that class with me, just so you can well imagine. So we met at the airport just to start. And the nice thing about that is it gave me a bunch of Newfoundlanders that were all heading off to CMR, and we got to know each other before we got there. So I had somebody that if I needed to reach out to as a friend or whatever, they were there. So Donna Peckham, and there was a number of these fine people that I met. So that was number one. Number two, I'm a Newfoundlander. I'm not afraid to make friends. Never have been. So able to really meet up and meet some great people early into my career. Actually, the two roommates that I had as I walked into CMR, they couldn't speak English and I couldn't speak French, but we damn well tried together, and we got to know each other, trust each other, like each other, have become excellent friend of mine through the rest of my life. But that was important for a young 16-year-old that couldn't tie a garbage bag, to be able to make some connections. You always miss home. So having some Newfoundland ties was wonderful to have. We could meet at the bar and get accustomed together. What's the challenges you're facing? What's the challenges I'm facing? And the other great thing for me as being a jock, so I was on 5 rep teams in the beginning. I naturally, even though I was a young prep, I naturally had some good supporters above me. So guys like Rich Gravel was 1 year ahead of me on the soccer team. So I naturally had, through my athletic capabilities, that team to support me also. So Rich and I have been friends for life. I saw your Gales Force wins with Rich, and he's probably one of the best men that I know. So having guys like that to then be able to help me helped me transition through CMR.
And Jerry, that's great. So I need to go even a little deeper then into that. You talk about being a Newfoundlander, not afraid to make friends. There's something about that too, isn't there, Jerry? There's something about Newfoundlanders that get thrust into these situations that they're able to kind of navigate it at such a young age. 16 years old, such a young age. What do you attribute that to? Like, where does that come from?
Honestly, for me, it comes from my old man.
Yeah.
Like, you can't shut my old man up anytime. He's a very, 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 he's been a, he I basically get my ethics and guidelines from what my old man taught me, right? And I still use it in business today. One of his beliefs is look a man in the eye, tell him the truth, shake their hands, and it's a deal. And then that's the only way that they will ever trust you. And then basically don't ever go back on any of that stuff. You do that, you follow that, son, you'll be okay.
Jerry,
and that's what I did.
What did your dad do for a living? I don't know if you mentioned that. I missed it.
The old man, my old man was a railroader. So he was up with the Quebec North Shore and Labrador Railway as a chief engineer.
Interesting. Yeah.
So yeah,
Gilles Couturier's dad too, right?
Yep.
Jerry, is your dad still with us?
Yes, he is. Yep. He's down in Deer Lake, Newfoundland. Don McLean. Don McLean. Yeah.
How old a man is he now, Jerry?
82, sir. 82 and still kicking. 82 and still kicking. We can't get him out of the woods.
Still talking.
Oh, yes. I'm still talking.
He's still talking.
He's still talking, man. He's still telling jokes.
Alan, we'll have to go on a road trip and go visit him.
Yeah, for sure. So, that's interesting, right? And that's a really solid foundation to build your career. And you navigate that whole time through CMR. But I want to pick you up on a point that you mentioned there. You're 18 years old and you have a son and you're in year 2 CMR. Oh, man. How was life then? It must have been tumultuous for you.
Yeah, you can well imagine, guys. I think we were making $600 a month.
Yeah.
As a naval cadet, with the responsibility of now a new child at home. Thank God for my wife's parents who looked after her and my son, because with $600 a month I couldn't.
Yeah.
And basically, it's eye opening, guys. If especially at that age, the most wonderful thing in my life is my son, and now my 3 grandkids that have come from my son.
Right.
But yeah, you can well imagine that was a bit of a rude awakening from a kid who was partying, having a lot of fun, to hey, wait, no, you're not a kid anymore. You got to grow up because you got to look after your kids. So yeah, it was tumultuous.
You're growing up fast, Jerry. You're growing up fast. You're 16 years old. You're taken out of the comfort of your home. You're put into this new setting. 18-year-old, you're a dad. I mean, you're growing up fast here. Hey?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Faster than your peers.
Yeah, and sometimes faster than I wanted to grow up, but I had to. And faster than my peers for sure. Yeah. Faster than my peers for sure.
Yeah, that's fascinating stuff, Jerry. So let's get back then to that transition. And you had a wonderful career. I mean, I know that when we served together, I remember how the crew interacted with you, your team interacted with you. There was a special bond that you had with them. There was a relationship that you had with those sailors that worked in the Combat Systems Department that it was special. It was clear that you were an officer there for the sailors to promote their well-being and the like. And I remember that even as a sub-lieutenant, watching the way you interacted with the crew, and it was fantastic. And you built trust, right? And let's get back to that point of trust. So there you are at a very, I would argue, a complicated time between government and industry. Not that it's ever that easy, but back then it was complicated, and you were building trust with your partners in industry with one goal in mind, to make sure the Navy had the best possible equipment. Tell us a little bit about that in the moment, how that evolved.
Uh, uh, I guess the simple answer for me, a contract's a contract. You don't work with a contract, you work with people. So the key aspect for me was finding the right people in industry that was going to help me get, as you indicated, Al, give me the right product. I'll give you an example. Stan Jacobson is a good friend of mine, of today. We would not have accomplished what we accomplished in naval trainers back in 1997 when we were bringing this in without a strong partnership with him and Lockheed Martin regarding the ability for me to, I'll interface with the naval staffs of the UK, the US, blah, blah, blah. You interface with the industrial side, and then we'll meet in the middle. Mm-hmm. But without that partnership and trust, we would not have built up the technologies that we built today, the international trust that we had with the UK and US on getting collaborative programs where the UK and US were paying, for instance, for the CWIS maintenance procedure team model. I didn't have to pay as a dime as in DMSS 5. That's the type of stuff that you get as a result of building those types of relationships. Another good example would be when I was working in SS6 as above water warfare director and working on things like APAR and Sirius. Well, you needed to understand the industry that was in there because we formed Canadian teams out of Breckenridge, out of LM, out of the other players that we ultimately bought in order to be able to deliver that capability. So you needed to be able to trust and build on that relationship with the industry side. So for instance, on Sirius, DRS was the critical partner. I needed to know what DRS's capability because I was pushing DRS to be solely the Canadian supplier, integrator, producer in Canada. So I needed them to trust me and for me to trust them. So that's the key aspect, I think, of how you build those relationships. Yeah. Again, contract's a contract, people are people.
And you need a tremendous lot of patience in these in this type of procurement and the like, but a vision too, right? And a style of vision that not a lot of people understand. I mean, you were looking over the horizon by many, many, many years, and not everybody can do that. Correct?
I won't generalize. This is not everybody can do that, but yeah, I have an ability to look strategically and see what needs to be done. Right. The way I work in three main horizons. Horizon 1 is kind of what's in the next 2 years. Horizon 2 is what's in the next 5, and Horizon 3 is what's in the next 10. And I tend to look out to, and I've been able to successfully look out at Horizon 2 and 3 and figure out what I need to do in Horizon 1 in order to be able to enable that to occur. And because you, as a leader of a team, you have to have a vision. Mm-hmm. And you've got to be able to communicate that vision to your team in a very effective means. Otherwise, they'll never follow you. So that's the way I tend to work. This is where I want to be. This is sort of my commander's intent of where I want to be and why. And it's up to you guys. I empower you guys to help me get there. So my senior leader's job is to help us get there. And so my job is to empower them. Their job is to empower their teams.
And trust them, right, Jerry? Trust them. You Absolutely. Give them that direction and let them go. Get out of their way, right?
D&D, delegate and disappear. Not quite to that effect, but but you have to trust them, right? The way that I find teams work most effectively is you delegate down, empower down to the lowest common denominator, trust them, but make them accountable. So there is consequences to failing, but don't work in a fear culture. You fail once, I can live with. You fail twice, you fail 3 times. Sorry, that's the difference in industry, right? We have a much shorter tether, a leash than you do in the government. So, we're able to more easily weed out those that can't hold the responsibility and accountability, but then you really then push those who can. Yeah. And that's the key. And that's the key to a good team.
100%. And you would have learned that well early in military college and on sports too, right? In your sporting adventures, you learned that right out of the gate. Jerry, okay, so let's talk a little bit about you come out of the military, great career into Thales. I know that you lit it up in Thales. I know that, wow, big things were done there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Again, a pretty ambitious guy I am. So Dave was the managing director at the time, and was looking to grow the naval business. He had had one successful contract under the big contract under the Army, and said, okay, come on out here, help me build this naval business. So okay, let's give it a shot. So my first mission in life was to win Smart Mark II for the Canadian Patrol Frigate. So welcome aboard. I was in Hengelo, I think 3 days after I signed the contract, and you have 9 RFPs to do with all of the bidders on Thales radars. Okay, let's get at her. So that was an interesting thing, but it made me thrown into the fire. It enabled me to grow, learn, and the thing is, they trusted me then to as the Canadian rep to get out of my way. It was really get out of my way. Just don't get in my way. Let me get at this thing. Mm-hmm. And you can do that in business development. Right. And we ended up winning Smart Mark II for the CPF through, again, working with good trusted partners, which at the time was Kevin Arthurs in LM and Rich Gravel in the Navy. Right. And they selected the right systems for the right reason. Yeah. But because of the way that the business was set up, it was predominantly a repair and overhaul business supporting Thales systems in country. And again, profit's important when you come out to the industry side. And when you do that type of work, guys, you're working in low profit margins of 3-4%. Right. Wow. And that's what you're getting, right? Is because you don't want to be marking up your own product. Because they're putting profit in, we're putting profit in. You don't want to be unnecessarily putting profit on profit to our customers. It's just not the right thing to do. At least it wasn't for me. Yeah. So you were making lower level profits. So the only way you're going to change it is to go up the value chain. That's the only way you change the game. Is change your value, change your position in the value chain. So we had partnered with C-SPAN at that time, Washington Marine Group. During JSS 1, the failed JSS 1. Yeah. Again, we were trying to position ourselves with Raytheon as the electronic systems integrator of that ship. I had built up a good, strong relationship with the Washington Marine Group head at the time. Things happened. People didn't agree. Washington Marine Group left the group ultimately, and ultimately it failed, but the relationship did not. So when National Shipbuilding Strategy came along, we actually approached each other. Thales was actually going to prime AOPS. Okay. With VSY or C-SPAN at the time, providing the level of support because they didn't understand at the time large defense contracts. They were a small yard doing predominantly repair and overhaul. Blah blah blah. So we formed the partnership right from that offset, with initially Thales in the lead, and Washington Marine Group as part and parcel of our strategic partner. National Shipbuilding strain. Go ahead, Jerry.
Despite the fact that the original project didn't go ahead, that relationship kind of sprung into this other, much more successful project, is what you're saying.
Again, absolutely. You don't burn a bridge, right? Don't ever burn a bridge. No matter what the relationship is, never burn a bridge. You never know when it's going to be important to you in the future. So, so I had gotten to know the C-SPAN or the Washington Marine Group guys extremely well. Standard Navy way. Let's go for a drink and have some fun and have a run ashore. And people are people. People like to not talk about work. How's your kids doing? That's the type of relationship that you need to build and are longer lasting than if it's just built around one business transaction. So the result ended up us National Shipbuilding switched it over. Washington Marine Group became the prime. Thales which was under myself and Dale Potter then at the time doing the leadership. And we basically bought it home, helped them. I spent 10 weeks, the last 10 weeks of the bid, providing them bid level of support of how they could get across the line. And that resulted in us becoming the electronic systems integrator. Because at the time, Washington Marine Group did not have that level of capability in their yard. So the partnership was an obvious partnership that we would support them. And it changed how we were doing business, and we brought us up the value chain.
Right.
So that's a good example of things that you need to do to change the paradigm if you're going to be successful out here. And again, with more responsibility, more risk equals more profit. And that's the way you go. So again, and then again, by the coup de grace before I left Thales was the winning of Aegis. So the AOPS JSS in-service support contract, nobody knew we were coming. They didn't know. We ran silent, ran deep, on purpose. I think Rich told the story well of Aegis and how things went. But we were very much able to capitalize on what had been done in Australia. We understood the customer. We understood that the customer had spent a lot of time in Australia learning the ISS routes, and we understood how to write the proposal. So bringing on guys like Rich to help, he was the commander, the commanding officer of an FMF. So who better than to write the FMF proposal that's going in than Rich Gravel? So it was building that team, run silent, run deep. Thales, they thought was an outlier, and surprise, surprise, we weren't an outlier, and we won Aegis. So that's that again changed the whole foundation of the way we were doing business in Thales. And at that point, guys, I was happy. Right. I had climbed the hill. I had created a very strong business with the rest of my team, obviously. And I was happy with where I would, and I retired from Thales.
You were probably pretty happy to retire at that point.
I was pretty happy to retire at that point. I'm not,
what happened?
But I failed. I failed.
What happened?
I failed. It's probably one of the things.
Why can you not hold this retirement job down?
So, according to your LinkedIn profile, you were retired for 2 years? Was that correct?
1 year.
1 year. Okay.
1 year.
Talk about that a little bit. What did you do in retirement?
Well, we had aspirations. My wife and I had aspirations. We were going to travel. You guys, one of my biggest things that we love to do is I'm a recreational vehicle owner. It's called really glamping. It's 42 feet, so it's not really a small RV.
I'm waving to your wife. Is that your wife in the background there?
That's my wife in the background. And we're golfers. We're avid golfers. So
now you're talking my language.
And we golf together. So I wanted to get my 6 handicap down to a 2.
Oh Jesus, 6 handicap.
So we started to play, right? And we played a lot. The plan was we were going to RV in the south, go to Arizona, travel the world. That didn't happen. COVID sucked. Couldn't go anywhere. And basically I just got bored, guys. I got bored, and a conversation with the wife and I kind of said, you're still too young. You still want to do this stuff. I miss the leadership. I miss the people. And then Babcock gave me an opportunity that I couldn't refuse.
So tell us about that.
I wouldn't have come back to any company. There had to be certain things. They may have thought they were interviewing me, but I was interviewing them or interviewing whoever. I did interview with Lockheed. I did interview with Babcock. I did interview with other companies as I looked at how was I going to come back. And what I needed to understand was what was their vision. What are you going to do differently that you've done in the past? And are you going to give me a level of autonomy to let me do what I need to do in order for me to be successful with my team?
Right.
When I interviewed with Babcock, I'll give you the honest answer. Babcock had been in trouble. Babcock International had been in trouble. And Babcock Canada had been in trouble as a result. Babcock's reputation when I was in industry 3 years ago was kind of let's suck every nickel we can out of the customer. And that created a bit of a reputation issue with the customer. And guys, it's when I've been in now for 90 days and it was true. That's the way Babcock needed it. They needed the capital. They needed it in the UK. And that's what you do as a good soldier. You ask what, the Admiral says, do it this way. Aye, sir, I'll do it this way. However, that group ultimately failed. The CEO was replaced with a very visionary new CEO. His name is David Lockwood. And David had a vision. So we had to get Babcock out of the troubles that they were in by writing down some really bad debt, blah, 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 which he's done. So he created a whole new team, brand new team. Wow. Like the executive committee gone from the old team with a brand new executive committee, which he's now grown. And he's a firm believer. He's a ex-Thales guy like me. He's a firm believer in international growth and enabling international growth and putting leaders in place that can deliver international growth. If you can recall, Babcock had predominantly had managing directors that were always from the UK. So, walking in, you're a UK guy. His commitment to international, as I interviewed him, was I need a Canadian to run this business. Right. I need a Canadian to run the full extent of this business, not just enable business. And I'm willing to invest in you, and I'm willing to give you the investments that are necessary for you to be successful. And that's what happened. So I bought into his vision. I believe in his vision, and after 90 days and continuing to talk with him and the XCOM, there's a difference, right? So there's even a huge difference in the Babcock Canada team with the change of leadership that happened 2 years ago. There is a absolute firm commitment to the customer, right? Absolute firm commitment that profit is not everything. Value is the most important thing that we as Babcock Canada believe we need to be delivering to our customer. The submarines, and when I talk to guys like Simon Page and Troy, the submarines need to be available at the time we say they're going to be available at the price we tell you they're going to be available for. So that is the commitment that we've made to our customer, and that's been changed. So the VP of Marine, Mark Dixon, out in Vancouver, has done an excellent job in helping to renew that trust again back to Babcock Canada. And my commitment is to that customer for exactly what I said. Yeah. We are going to be delivering earned value, and basically schedule, as Mr. Page has told me, is the critical aspect. Yeah. And as Troy has said, yeah, but give me the right price, Jerry, also that supports that. So that's our commitment. So I've bought into that, guys. I believe in it. And that's where we're moving. But that's the Navy business. That's the Navy business. So fairly comfortable there, as long as I can make sure that we continue to keep the customer's trust. The other part of the business that really excites me is the new business. I'm learning about nuclear today. About Babcock is very good at doing what's called decommissioning of nuclear sites. It's one of their strengths in the UK. So as we look at Canada, there are markets that are opening up, i.e. Pickering will be occurring shortly, blah, blah, blah. So because of that, I'm basically figuring out, I guess my mantra now is, global capability delivered locally is really the mantra of what I've told my team. So how are we going to build nuclear up in Canada? That's new for me. That's fun stuff. Yeah. But why it's also fun stuff is my CEO is committed to allow me the money to do a merger and acquisition, so that I'm not trying to do this organically. I can't do it. Yeah. So that's fun. That's all fun stuff as you look at how do you grow a business. And similarly, we do a lot of work on aviation emergency services, both fixed wing and rotary. So if you think about it like what Orange does in Ontario, well, we already have one of those contracts in Manitoba doing Manitoba firefighting. So this is another new area of the business that really excites me as I figure out how can we play, how can we be successful, and how can we grow.
That's exciting.
So I'm not bored anymore. I'm definitely not bored. Bored would not be the term that I would put me under, but but I'm having a lot of fun.
Jerry, it's one thing to come out of retirement and, take a kind of a job that's not too stressful. You came out of retirement and now the CEO. Jesus.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So,
well, it is. It's fun. It's fun stuff, man.
Jerry, it's I love the way you describe the change of direction in Babcock, and something's going on there, right? I mean, you don't have to pay attention too carefully to see good people gravitating in that direction. I look at guys like Jack McDonald and Sarah McMillan and people gravitating towards Babcock, and it makes you say, what's going on over there? That good people are moving in that direction. And then I notice you're in there, and I'm thinking to myself, there's a change in the wind there, and that's fantastic. But I also liked the way you described that you were interviewing them as much as them interviewing you. Because even at your level, and it's a pretty high level that you're playing at there, even at your level, you want to define your lanes and stay inside and keep, so that those are all clearly, and then you want people out of your lane and let you achieve what you need to do. Even at your level, that's complicated, right? To convince your upper level that this is my lane, stay out of it. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I've always been a very good communicator. And as a result of that, it's kind of, I've been in the job for 90 days, but I've met everybody and I've met the senior XCOM, and we have, again, I always go back to this word, and it's an important word though, trust. Mm-hmm. They've gotten to know me. I've gotten to know them. We've gotten, again, Navy way, had a few beers, got drunk together, got to know each other. But now the senior guys in Babcock know me. They understand my background. I understand theirs, and now we're working as a team, collaboratively. So the CEO of Babcock Nuclear we both have to deliver this together. Global capability delivered locally is important. They have the capability. I need to build the delivery means in Canada to be able to execute it, right? Again, even in my Thales days, it might not be a Canadian product to start, but it's going to be a Canadian product delivered to Canadians by Canadians, provided in-service support by Canadians. I bleed red Canadian, right?
Right.
And again, that's why they really wanted to have their CEO being a committed, strong Canadian, to be able to do that. And really that's that is now the mantra that's coming out of Babcock that you'll see. And you're also seeing it not only with me as a direct reporting country right to the CEO of Babcock, but it's also in Australia. It's also in South Africa, where they believe in international growth. Those fine CEOs also report directly to the CEO. There's no filtering, which was an important aspect of how are we going to be able to get our job done. I don't want to be filtered. I'd rather be able to go straight to the CEO and say, I need to get this done. And by the way, I have the support of the other capability CEOs of what we call sector CEOs. And again, it goes to communication and trust.
Yeah, hard to filter a Newfoundlander for sure. So tell me this, Jerry. What's over the horizon for not only Babcock but for you? What's over the horizon for you and your family? And let's clear up Babcock first. What are you focusing on there? And then let's get into it.
I'm in 90 days, man. 90 days in. I have a vision. Just completed the strategy review. We have our Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3. Now the biggest challenge for me is to put it into a strategic business plan that gets support so that I can actually execute it. Without the money and corporate support, you can't necessarily execute it. And obviously getting the team together, getting the team in place that can get the customer to trust us so that we can travel it together. So that's important. So that's what I'm really going to be doing. I'm going to do this probably for the next 4 to 5 years, but
Are you looking at your wife now when you answer that question?
Yeah, she's over there. She's over there. I'm also on the 30-30 plan, right? 30 seconds to piss me off, 30 seconds I'm gone. So we also live by that rule. But yeah, I'll be ready. I don't want to be working too far past 60.
Okay.
I think that's enough, and then it'll be time for me to continue to spoil my grandchildren, and for my wife and I to go back traveling. COVID hopefully over, and we can do it.
Tell me about those grandchildren, Jerry.
I have 3 wonderful grandkids. Having a good thing, Al, about having a son early. I had grandkids early. Right. So my oldest grandson is 15, avid hockey player, but is now finding girls, so we're not getting so much time with him. Welcome to being 15. I got a granddaughter who's 13, who thinks she's 21, and I have a grandson who's 7. So yeah, it's a wonderful times. My pastime and my wife's pastime is to spoil those grandkids. I have no responsibility, no accountability, so I get to have all of the fun with them.
So they're geographically close by, Jerry?
They live upstairs, Al.
Oh my God, you're kidding.
I live in a multi-generational home now.
Oh, that is fantastic. Tell me about that. That's fantastic.
Well, my wife and I, when we didn't need a big home for the two of us. We thought we would be on the road all the time with our RV, blah, blah. We just needed a place to hang our shingle.
Yeah.
So figured it was time to give my son some equities so that they can get the home that they want. So invested into buying a new house. There was a basement. We built the suite that we liked in the basement. My son has the equity for the home. I built the backyards for the grandkids with, pool and whatever they needed. And so that's really what happened. So we now live in a multi-generational home where my son and my grandkids are literally upstairs.
Jerry, I often try to define success, and success is different for everybody. Money, whatever, prestige, power, all that kind of stuff. What you just described to me there is success. I mean, there you are, you and your wife, your grandkids are right next to you. You're a big part of their lives as they grow up. They're looking at the world through the lens of what you're doing in the moment, building a great Canadian addition to an international company. I mean, that's fantastic, Jerry. That is success in a nutshell. Would you agree?
I can't disagree, guys. I'm quite proud of what I've accomplished. I'm quite proud. Like I went back to my old man, right? I'm quite proud of what I've instilled in my son, and what I've instilled in my grandkids. So yeah, I'm like, I would look back at my career, guys, in one word, saying loved it.
Jerry,
two words, I guess. Loved it.
Jerry, I'm gonna bring up somebody that's walking around the background there. Jerry Crew and I are lucky that we've got great partners in life that support us in everything we do. Make us get up in the morning and just want to do things. And when we do things wrong, they tell us, and they keep us level. And a big part of, I think, what Jerry and I do and who we've become is a direct reflection on the support we have from our partners. Tell us a little bit about the importance of that for you.
She's been my rock forever, guys. So, you can't be a naval officer with a child and not have a rock like that behind you. Yeah. She chills, brings me down when I'm overexcited, ramps me up when I need to be, kicks me in the ass when I need to be kicked. I wouldn't be where I am without the wonderful support of her. She's just a fabulous woman, good down home Newfoundlander, and basically absolutely my rock. I think, as you said, Al, would not be able to do what I've accomplished without her.
Wow. Well, we often ask our guests to leave the audience with a piece of advice. Jerry, you've had a wonderful career inside the Navy, outside the Navy, obviously at home. You've had a wonderful, beautiful journey. Tell us what a piece of advice might be from a guy like you.
Um, I've been successful because of the people that I have around me. Most important thing you can do is build a team that you can trust. Build a team that you can delegate to and trust. Build a team that's going to deliver everything that you have as a vision. It's their job to do it, right? They do the grunt work. Um, they do all of the on the floor, in the bars, business development, execution, in the computer labs. It's those guys and gals that lead the teams are the most important. So you need to develop those individuals. Take time in developing those individuals to be successful, and then you don't have to work so hard. You don't. You trust them. They deliver. And then basically it makes your life a hell of a lot easier. To me, that's probably the best advice you can have as a leader. And your job as a leader is to nurture them, develop them, let them fail, learn by what they failed at, and then basically keep propping them up and keep trusting them. That really is words that I live by, and I swear by. And it's what I have invoked into the teams where we've always been successful.
Jerry Carew, your thoughts?
What am I supposed to say now? All I can tell you, Jerry, is wow. We never know what to expect when we bring guests on this program that we've created. But I get it. I get the whole, I want to slow down, I want to retire, I want to hit golf balls, and then that gets a little boring. I get what you're trying to do, and I really appreciate it. A couple of things. Never burn a bridge. You said that. There's a few bridges out there that I'm still thinking about burning, but as you say that, I'm like, nah, don't do it, Jerry. Don't burn them. Don't burn them. But I'm still on the fence. I might, but no.
There's ways to get around it, Jerry, without completely burning it, right?
Well, I've burned a few in the past, and then in the end, when you reflect on it, it's not worth it. It's never worth it. But anyway,
but that's advice I got from an ex-naval officer, Brett Johnson, who took me out of Thales. Right? He said, "First thing I'm going to tell you, never ever burn a bridge," and how true that is.
Yes, I get it. And I've taken so much out of this. One thing I'll say is, man, the energy that you have, it must be an absolute breath of fresh air to have you around and be around you. And I look forward to seeing where you take this. One last thing I'm going to say is, Newfoundland, I think we're okay right now with the leadership we have. But if there's anything, you ever think about after your time with Babcock to come back and run this province, we need a few things done here, It's open. The invitation is there.
I don't trust politicians. So I could never trust myself being a politician.
Well, that's a great ending note. Listen, it was a wonderful conversation here today on Gale Force Winds with Jerry McLean. Jerry and I go back a lot of years. I remember walking on board HMCS Athabascan that we named here early in the podcast and meeting Jerry. And I knew there was something about this guy that you had to pay attention to even back then. And I was a young guy. And Jerry was young as well back then, but there was something about him that you had to pay attention to. People, he resonated with people. People understood him and he cared about people. And it's clear that has transitioned all throughout his career, both in the Navy and into industry. And quite frankly, Jerry has lit up the Canadian defense sector in a very, very positive way, producing great things for our country, and he's to be celebrated for that. And I'm so glad that COVID interfered with his plans to retire and he's back in it, because I know that he can do more good things for us. And eventually, Jerry will get to Horizon 3 when he can retire personally. But until then, we certainly appreciate everything that you've done with us. And the one thing that resonates with me the most out of the conversation, it was about trust. It was about trusting people around you, trusting yourself that you can do the right things. And I think that that's a real big takeaway for me. But I also like to leave the audience with my own piece of advice. And quite frankly, The world needs more Jerry McLean. Keep up the work, mate. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Winds. That's galeforcewinds, WINS.com.